If you're interested in learning how I launched Zim Excellence, then you're in luck. Sign up for my podcast workshop and learn how it's easier and more affordable than ever to start a podcast. Also, grab yourself a copy of my podcast resource guide, which covers industry terminology, suggested tech setup, in addition to countless free online resources to support your podcast journey. Just head to wongai.com/podcast creation. That's wongai.com/podcast creation. The link will also be down in the show notes. Now, let's start the show. Warning. The following part of this episode features an adult conversation about domestic violence and teenage pregnancy, which may be triggering to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Please check the show notes for more detailed descriptions, and as always, please take care of yourself. Thank you. This next part will come with a disclaimer at the beginning of the episode. Wanted to be a cardiac thoracic surgeon when you were 4. Parents were like, awesome, we're going to get this done. Let's move to the U.S. Moved to the U.S. And by the time you were 18, you found yourself pregnant. Keeping in mind, y'all, she's also a PK kid surrounded by your community of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That was a lot. And you're also a survivor of domestic violence. I feel you exhibit a lot of strength and determination and resilience. My question would be, what has given you the strength to come forward and share your story so openly?
I think the biggest thing for me is that when I was going through all those challenges, I felt so alone because nobody was talking about it. And especially in our community, it was very taboo. First of all, becoming pregnant out of wedlock, being a pastor's kid, everybody in the community was talking. There was a lot of talk, not only in the community where I was staying in Barron Springs, Michigan, but in Zimbabwe also, because, it's like my dad was a people person. And so it's like I felt very alone and I felt very unsupported by my community. And then when it came to, so I actually then consciously removed myself from the community. Even though I was still physically there, I consciously removed myself so that I could focus on my life, building my life and living it. In terms of domestic violence, it's a very, very difficult topic to breach because especially in that time, I had an older lady that I trusted that I went to talk to about what was happening. And she basically said to me, oh, my dear, and she meant well. And she said to me, oh, my dear, Manangu, it will get better with time. They will get more mature and it will get better. And in terms of Amwaskana, it's okay. As long as Kuti comes home to you at the end of the day, that's okay, because we all went through it. But with time, they'll get better and they'll get more mature. You don't want kuzviparadzira musha wako. And to me, I was like, no, I know I deserve better. It was such a difficult place because I had made this mistake. Yes, I had gotten pregnant. I had gotten married to the guy. And in the beginning, I felt like, okay, I made the bed. Now I have to lay in it. But then you realize that it's not about me anymore. Now I have 2 children who are watching my every move. I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking that it's okay to be treated that way by a partner, by anybody. And I don't want my son to grow up thinking that it's okay to treat women that way. And it's so sad because I grew up in a family where my dad is such a gentleman. He was always very loving. My parents took very good care of each other. So I had a good example of what a husband and wife healthy relationship is. And when you're going through that and you feel alone, you become very depressed. Your self-esteem is at the very lowest and you stop believing in yourself. You stop believing that you're even worthy. And I didn't want anybody else to go through that thinking that, they are alone. I wanted to bring encouragement to those who are going through difficulties, even though they may not be exactly the same situation that I was in, but to not feel like they're going through it alone, and to know that there are others who've been through it and who have managed to succeed and do well and still live healthy, happy lives, and that all that doesn't define who you are.
Yeah, I'd say in our culture, a lot of focus is always put on, like, how is the situation making the family feel? And then shame is put on the women, and the women have to be accountable, but there is never usually an accountability towards the man or the son.
Yeah, because a lot of times you even hear the saying "mushamkads,"
Yeah.
where they are basically saying you as a woman are responsible for building your home. And I beg to differ. Yeah. It takes two. If you have somebody who is willing to build with you, you will build an amazing legacy. But if you can't expect everything to be on the woman when she has no input from the man, So I would like that to be banned from being ever talked about in our Zimbabwean community, that mushamkads. And the other thing that I would like banned, I know I'm off topic, but the other thing that I would like banned is this sense of, I don't mind dowry, Rora is okay, dowry is fine. I'm fine with that, but totally fine with it. I have 4 sons and 1 daughter, and I'm totally fine with going and paying all these monies, the rota for all my muroras. I'm good with that, and I'm fine with getting monies for my daughter. I'm fine with that. But what I don't like is the fact that we put all these things like damages. So when a girl becomes pregnant out of before they are married or whatever, and then they come to pay dowry, and then they are paying money for damages, I hate that term, because for the longest time I felt like I was damaged goods, because that's a term that I had multiple times. And I can't imagine somebody else who is going through that, a young teenage girl or a young girl in her 20s or whatever, who got pregnant out of wedlock, and they're hearing that they're damaged goods, because that does something to your self-worth, your self-value, your self-esteem, that you grow up or you advance in life thinking that you're not good enough. And
or you think you're going to hell.
Exactly. Like the point, thinking you have sinned this big sin that God is never going to bless you. That's how I felt. I felt like I had committed the utmost sin, and that's how it was growing up. It's like we were basically taught that that's such a big no-no, and now God is never going to bless you. And I can tell you that I am living proof that that is false. That is all fake news. God will bless you.
Fake news, y'all. I remember growing up in Zimbabwe, for the portion that I did grow up in Zimbabwe, in schools, we would like watch these educational films with all these morals, or like read these books or like fictional things where it always had to do with like HIV, AIDS, and getting pregnant and all of this stuff. And had the sex talk more times than I probably needed to, like at least 5 times plus, like my mom, my aunts, at school, 3 times, Christian camp, like all the things. I've had it so many times, where I had then convinced myself, getting pregnant, your life is over. Like you'll never amount to anything. So I swear to you, Praise, I swear to you, I think it's only when I turned, now I'm going to age myself. It was only when I turned about 24, 25, I realized something. Every time I would get to my birthday, I would always be like, oh, thank God I'm not pregnant. As if it was like someone would just randomly come for me out of the woodworks, trying to make sure that I was pregnant and that my life was over. And I just needed to look out for myself. Like just from all the messages that I'd gotten growing up, I'd convinced myself like, oh my gosh, I must not Yes,
the price that was placed on virginity, I don't even understand how that started, because it's just so terrible. And for girls growing up and thinking that's the one thing that they have, and then you have girls who unfortunately are raped, and then they feel like they've lost that one thing. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being a virgin until you're married. That's fine. But the way we view it and the way we look at it is not right. It's destroying our young. It destroys our young girls. And I can
and
tell
it's
you that
dividing us as well as women, because then we're saying terrible things about each other by, like, you'd be at school gossiping, oh, I heard she and this guy, she's a hoe, or like oh yeah, and she got pregnant, oh my gosh, da, 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 it's awful when we should be supporting and uplifting each other, like you said.
And that's the thing, because when you were saying that you had like so much sex talk, I've had like a million sex talks with my kids. It's not in the you're going to hell if you have sex type talk. It's more on, if you're going to have sex, this is how it should be. Because I want you to have responsible sex. Because sex is going to happen, whether we like it or not. Adults, are you listening? Whether you like it or not, sex is going to happen.
This is the controversial episode.
But I would like for girls to be taught about sex education and how to be responsible, and for boys to be taught about sex education and how to be responsible, rather than saying that it's a no, don't do it, that's done. Because if it does happen, they need to be protected against STDs, against whatever. And they need to understand that there's a big price to pay with sex. It's not just a physical act. And it's not a big price if you get pregnant or if you get a disease, but just the emotional aspects of it. So it should be a comprehensive teaching about what sex is and why we say, okay, you should be having sex in the confines of a marriage. Why is it that we are teaching that? This is why we're teaching it, because I feel like I would be more receptive to listening to that and actually following that if I had all the facts. And also knowing that, okay, but if you are going to have sex, here are some condoms. You need to be protected. If you are going to have sex, these are the things that you need to, things that you need to have safe sex. We cannot just look at it from the don't have sex. That's all I say. That's it.
I mean, for the longest time, I had so many trust issues towards men, towards the opposite sex, because, it was, the education I was getting was framed as like, boys will be boys, guys are going to do what they're going to do. So women, you better protect yourself and make sure this, which is really confusing. And then there's also the culture of like, you have to serve the man and be at the liberty of the man. And so I'm just like, let me just take myself out of the whole dating equation because I'm confused and I'm scared and I don't want any part of this stress.
And I think that's a big problem that we have. And it's not just us Zimbabwean or African women. I always call it the African mom syndrome, where we love our boys, our sons so much that we spoil them too much. It's not even good, in that they end up not being responsible adults. And I used to see it a lot. I'd be watching, and I love to people watch. And I would be seeing it a lot in our Zimbabwean community, where you look at family where there's a girl and a boy child, and you'd see that the treatment is very different. And then we end up producing these very responsible, very independent girls, and end up producing these very dependent boys. And why is that? Because of the way we are raising our kids. Somehow we flip the script, where we are teaching our girls to be responsible, because we tell our girls, you have to be independent. It's okay if you want to get married. It's okay if you want to have that, but you have to also be independent on your own and be able to stand on your own 2 feet. But then we are not raising our boys that way, and we are expecting our boys to be married to these women that are there to serve them, because that's what we as moms have been doing all their life, is serving them. That's something that we as a community, I think we can do better on.
We also have that larger conversation of when women and when girls do come forward about sexual assault and rape and relationship abuse and domestic violence, that they're not often believed. And, we don't just see it in Zimbabwean culture. We've seen it in American culture and British culture and just everywhere. It's just this thing that is just so prevalent, and it just drives me so crazy to like when these stories come up on the internet, I have to check out and I just have to like talk to myself, because I am highly sensitive. So when one person hurts, I hurt as well. And you've got statistics that it's 1 in 5 women. And when the Me Too movement came out, and they were like, who's ever been harassed, who's ever been this, and we basically all said it. I remember when I was like, Me Too, and I had an ex-boyfriend come to me and be like, wait, like, are you okay? Like, I had no clue, and this. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I was just like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, I'm not just like, I guess, the victim of men being garbage, as I call them. Like, it's happened to all of us. It's just so awful. I'd say, what would you have to say to people who often don't believe women or want to take their side?
So that's a big problem, because oftentimes when someone steps forward and says, I was raped or I was assaulted, oftentimes I've heard this even in like the Zimbabwean community. Or so what were you doing over there? Or but as in what how you normally dress, wearing those short shorts, wearing those short skirts. No, that is no reason to say that it's okay for that to have happened to someone because of the way they dress.
Yeah.
Always looking for excuses to why it happened, and not being there to help and to support the person who has experienced this traumatic event. So I think we have a lot of work to do in that area, and in not making it a blame game where we want to blame the victim. And it's going to take a lot of restructuring in our own minds to say that it's not their fault that this happened. And there is no reason to be looking for a reason for why it happened. It's a terrible thing that happened, and the person that did it needs to be responsible. There is absolutely no reason to be trying to make the victim feel shame.
Yeah. What message would you have for teen moms going through it or survivors?
I have to say, for teen moms, it's not the end of the world. Your child, your children will be your biggest and greatest blessings. I can tell you this from experience. And I mean, look at me. I am 40 years old. My kids are adults. I am living my best life.
She meant she's 20 years old. We don't age ourselves on this show.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you have a message you want to share with the world, or you think, ooh, it could be fun to have my own talk show like one guy, getting started is easier than ever. Here at Zim Excellence, we use Buzzsprout, which is hands down the easiest, most affordable, and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Start for free and list your show on directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping and teaching you to succeed. Just check out their YouTube videos. They are filled with tons of information. So join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Sign up today using the link in the show notes, or go to wongai.com/podcast creation, and you'll get a $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan. It also helps support the show. So go ahead, sign up for Buzzsprout, and keep me posted on your new podcast. Now back to the show.
Girl, I have been waiting to be 40 for a long time. So when I turned 40 this year, it was the my most exciting birthday yet. I was very
So you were
excited.
born free. You were born 1 year free.
1981. Yep, 1981.
I love that. Okay, we have to talk about the Rose Gift Foundation before I forget.
Yes.
Period poverty, something I am just I'm so passionate about it. So passionate about, menstrual equity and women's empowerment and uplifting women. I think the statistic is like women are 2/3 of 796 million people in the world who are illiterate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, it's heartbreaking. This is why you then have, these economic disparities, because like when you're not educated, then you have less access to money and understanding how that works and power, and it's just such a big issue. So the fact that your foundation is giving out personal hygiene products to girls in villages and girls in low income communities is amazing, because it just makes such a huge difference to self-esteem and to a girl's confidence. Because this is going to get TMI for all the men listening, but your menstrual cycle does not care if you're rich or poor.
It does not care. It show up,
and it doesn't care if there's a pandemic either.
Nope, it does not care at all. And I think one of the biggest things is that there are things that we take for granted. You can walk into any store, Walmart, Target, whatever store, and you can get a pack of sanitary pads for like $3.25. And you can go for a couple of months and not even think about sanitary pads. And there are girls and women out there who have absolutely no access. They're having to use washcloths and wash these washcloths that they are reused multiple times, and having to cut out t-shirts. Already they don't have that many resources even in terms of clothes, and they're having to cut these clothes into tiny pieces that they are using as sanitary wear. And some women are using leaves and cow dung. I mean, are these things that you would have even imagined? And we take that for granted because we can just walk into a store and get a pack of pads. So it's one of the things that I feel like is low-hanging fruit that we all can make a difference in. And it doesn't just affect the women, because we have to realize that when you uplift a woman, you are uplifting the whole community. Women are very resourceful. And when young girls are missing school because they're on their period, because they can't go to school when they're on their period, then that's just continuing this cycle of poverty, because we know that an educated woman is going to most likely free her children and thus her community from poverty. But a lot of girls end up not going to school and missing school and then falling behind and quitting school because they don't have access to sanitary pads, something that is so easily remedied. And let's not even start talking about child marriages in our own Zimbabwe. Something that I never
and child marriages and also when it comes to the differences in people's menstrual cycles and flow, like we could talk about like the average normal cycle. We could talk about people who probably are undiagnosed endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome and menorrhagia and all of that stuff, having to miss out on school because you have a heavy flow or you're in pain, but not having access to medicine or even just painkillers. I'm a huge lover of CBD, and that's a privilege. It's a privilege for me to be talking about CBD when someone can't even get like a paracetamol.
Exactly. Like, I can tell you that I would not have been able to accomplish a lot without painkillers. And I see a lot of young girls who are suffering and they have no access to just even the basics. We all can make a difference. One of the things that I think people think is that, oh, I'll wait until I have a better job, or I'll wait until I'm more established. I'll wait until I've bought my house and I have bought my fancy car and I've done this to be able to do something. But we all can make a change. We all can do something. Even a little bit, it goes a long way.
How can people get involved with the foundation?
So we always need volunteers, and we always will take your money. We love donations.
Yeah.
So
She got
when you go to
PayPal, she
the
got Venmo, she got Cash App, she got bank account.
everything. So when you go to the foundation website, there is different places where you can donate, and you can, if you want specifically to donate to the different causes that we have 4 different areas that we focus on: education, period poverty, incarcerated women and their daughters, and child marriages. So you can go to one specific one and you can donate there, or you can just donate to the general fund. And we can use all the donations we can get, because I can tell you that so far with the foundation, I'd say probably 99% of the funds I've just been funding personally. So I can use help.
And I'm pretty sure if you go on the website or if you reach out via email about more information about where the money goes and where things in cotton are being sourced, that Dr. Praise would happily, have someone send you that information as well.
I have one of my friends who said, my mom loves to sew. And when she found out that you provide sanitary pads, she said she's going to sew some pads for your organization. I'm like, really? Like, how many pads are we talking here? She's like, oh, she said she would just keep working. She would just keep sewing. 2,000, 3,000 pads. I'm like, man, I think I need to just buy a sewing machine and she can teach me how to sew. So if you can sew, we will take your services. There are so many ways that you can help. If you can be a mentor, we will hook you up with young women to mentor. So it doesn't all have to be monetary. If you cannot provide, if you cannot donate, there are other services that you can provide to just help our mission continue.
That is absolutely wonderful. What advice do you have for someone interested in the medical field? And are there any resources that you would personally recommend that people should check out?
When it comes to medicine, because, I'm unique in the sense that I wanted to be a doctor since I was 4 years old, but I came to realize that a lot of people have wanted their kids to be doctors. My parents never actually wanted me to be a doctor. They just said, you have to find something that you're passionate about, because you're going to have to be working forever, like something that you can be 70 years old and still enjoying. And I want to encourage especially our people, because I know how it is where we say, where we try to push our kids to be doctors or lawyers or engineers. I want to just encourage that you have to find something that you truly are passionate about, that you enjoy. Because in terms of being a doctor, you have to be okay with delayed gratification, because it takes a damn long time.
I mean, what is date night when you're a doctor? I don't know.
Seriously. In America, it's 4 years of medical school after your undergraduate training. And then to do general surgery training, what I did, it's 5 to 7 years, depending on if you do research and other factors. I did 7 years. And then to become even super specialized in transplant surgery, it was another 2 years of fellowship on top of that. And you have to keep in mind that, yes, you get a salary when you become a resident, but compared to your peers and how much you work, it's not that much, because you're working 80 hours a week as a resident. And then when you become a fellow, like my fellowship didn't have work hour restrictions. There are some weeks that I was working 120 hours a week. And so, yes, I was comfortable, because, you look at the salary and you're like, oh, but you're making $60,000 a year, or by the time I was a fellow, making $70,000 a year. But also, if you consider the amount of time that you're working, like if I had been working as a nurse, those kind of hours, you'd be making like over $150,000 a year. You know what I mean? So it's like when you look at those factors, money should not be the driving force of what you choose to do with your life. You have to be okay with putting in the work and working hard to get there. And you have to love it and be passionate about it. So if you're thinking about being a doctor, I tell my residents and students this all the time when they're thinking about what specialties to go into in medicine. As I don't say, oh, I want to be an interventional radiologist so that I can make a lot of money, or I want to be a gastroenterologist so I can make a lot of money and buy and drive a Mercedes Benz. Look at something that you are okay doing at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're the most tired. You haven't slept sometimes for like 2 days. You're the most tired. You're the most hungry. Where is it that you want to be if you have to be at work? What is it that makes you happy? And I can tell you that 3 o'clock in the morning doing a transplant, I am perfectly happy and perfectly fine doing that. So for those who want to be doctors, make sure that that is your passion and that's your love, and you cannot imagine yourself doing anything else, because it's a huge sacrifice, not only in terms of time, but also you are not your own person when you're a doctor. When you're on call, if you get that phone call and you're out to dinner with your family, you gotta go, you know? And so it's like there's so many sacrifices along the way that you have to sacrifice. And that's why you have to absolutely can't imagine yourself doing anything else. And you'll be fine. The doors will open for you and you will get where you need to get to. Just work hard, put your head down, study, 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 do the best that you can, because you're not studying for a grade. You're studying to be the best doctor that you can be to your patients.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you can't be in the operating room with your needle sewing someone up and say, oops, I hit an artery. Okay, are you ready for our lightning round?
I am ready.
First question, what is your zodiac sign?
Cancer.
Love that. That is the cardinal opposite of my sign, Capricorn. My dad is the same side as you. Very nurturing sign. What was the last book you read?
So I read all the time. I can read sometimes like maybe 1-2 books a week because I'm a very fast reader. So the last one I read full completed. Could I come back to that one?
Yeah, no worries. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Would just be to eradicate poverty. That would be my superpower.
Favorite Bible verse? This is a special question for you. Favorite Bible verse?
I think probably Joshua 1 verse 9. Be strong and courageous.
Love that.
That's
I think
favorite.
my mom would say that to me when she would drop me off for school. I just remember this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, she would, grab my hands and she'd pray over me when she was dropping me for the school bus, and then she would say that first, and then I would go to school. Yeah. So it became this thing that whenever I had exams, because I don't test well, so I get super anxious, that like I just needed her to like pray for me and get it done.
I love that so much. That's so amazing. Interestingly, when I moved here, she's a very good friend of mine now. She was the nurse practitioner that I was working with on our transplant unit. One day I walked into my office. It had been such a rough week. You're just a brand new attending. And there was this like stone and a card in there. And the stone was that verse, my favorite verse. And she didn't know me like that. So I was just like, God speaks to us in so many different ways. Just beautiful.
That is true. Favorite Zimbabwean musician?
Probably Thomas Mapumo.
Favorite Zimbabwean childhood snack?
My things.
It's time for the most controversial question of them all. Mazoe orange versus Mazoe green.
Cream soda all the way.
The next one is a power statement. Mm-hmm. It goes, I am Zim excellence because blank.
It's very simple. I am Zim excellence because I am a child of Zimbabwe. Plain and
Love
simple.
It. If you could nominate someone for the award of Zim excellence, who would it be?
This may be controversial, but
I'm not ready.
So growing up until I was like grade 5, I really, really looked up to our first lady, Salim Mugabe. And I actually was privileged enough to go to her funeral. I mean, I don't even know how it happened, but I told my dad I want to go to her funeral. I want to go. And it happened that I happened to go to her funeral. But when I found out that she had died from kidney disease, I was like, and she had gotten a kidney transplant prior. I just find that to be very interesting because I was sort of obsessed with that woman, and now I'm a transplant surgeon.
Oh,
But yeah.
wow. Wonder if
So
she's
for
like
me,
one of your guides.
I wonder, but for me, yes, I really admired her. Yeah. And she wasn't even Zimbabwean born.
Mm.
Yeah.
If you could nominate someone to come on this show called Zim Excellence, who would it be?
It will actually be my co-founder for the Rose Gift Foundation, and her name is Patience Tarumba. She is an amazing and phenomenal woman, and she is the one person that I would nominate. She's in Zim. She's Zim Excellence in Zimbabwe.
Love that. Sally Mugabe, you have officially been nominated for the award of Zim Excellence, and Patience Tarumbwa, you've been nominated to come on the show Zim Excellence.
Yes.
Dr. Praise, it was a pleasure to finally virtually meet you, an honor and a privilege to be in your midst, to laugh, to love, to talk about all the much needed things that we need to talk about in our community. As we wrap up, I would love it if you could share a message with our listeners, as well as letting them know where they can continue to follow your journey on the interwebs.
Well, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. And going back to your question of the last book I read, I actually don't remember because I'm always reading multiple books at the same time. But I am, like this morning, I told my husband when he's taking me to the airport, we got to stop by Barnes and Noble because a lot of books I read on Kindle, but I do love just having a book in my hand. Yes. And so I told
Love
him
that.
I want to stop by and get the book. Is it I will probably butcher it, but it's I Am Girl Africa, or I Am
I am a girl from Africa by Elizabeth Nyamayaro. See, I'm just like freaking out. That's on my list as well to read. I need to read the book, and then I'm going to reach out to her to come on the show.
That's a book that I'm picking up on my way to the airport because I'm going to read that on my flight. I'll be done with it by tomorrow. Actually, that reminds me, the last book I read was last week, and it was Ilan Omar's memoir.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I should check that out. Yeah.
It's good. It's very good. And it's like, because you can see yourself in a lot of what she talks about being, an immigrant, because she moved to America when she was about the same age that I was. And yeah, I found that to be very interesting because I found out that there's a girl that I talked to that's like, I think she's just such a phenomenal woman, and she does a lot of community health, and she's now in Kenya. And I recently found out that they're sisters actually. And so I was like, oh, let me find this book and read it. And that's when I was like, oh, this makes total sense. And it's like just amazing. So yes, I recommend that book to you too.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm adding it to my list.
Now to answer your question finally.
There we go. Your message, just to reiterate, if people are lost, it is her message that she's sharing with our listeners, as well as letting them know where they can continue to follow her journey.
So my message to our listeners is that, in life, there will be a lot of challenges. You have to have sort of like a compass. You have to always, always keep your eye on the prize. It doesn't matter what left and right is saying, what anybody is saying to you, or what it might even look like. Things can look like they are dead, but things are not dead. You can achieve so much of your dreams if you have a dream and you have a plan. I was just, my kids laugh at the sayings that I say, because I was like, there was a time when people thought they had buried me, because, things just looked like nothing good was ever going to come out of my life. But I was just like little seeds, and all I needed was just some watering, some sunshine, and some fresh air. And then I started blooming into little seedlings, and then I started blooming into a flower, and now I'm a whole plant. So even when things are tough, things are difficult, just see yourself as a seed. All you need is a little water, a little sunshine, and you'll be just fine. So just to encourage you that things are not always as they seem. You will be okay. There is a better life for you if you're going through some challenges. And you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Praise Matemavi. You can find us on our nonprofit, the Rose. It's actually rosegiftfoundation.org. You can find me on Twitter, Dr. Praise Matemavi, on Facebook, Praise Matemavi. And we have 2 seasons of Living Life with Passion and Purpose podcast. And it's basically just me having conversations with women. I'm very nosy, so I want to know how other people do life and how they do things.
Oh, same. I do it under the pretense of Zim excellence, but I secretly just want to know all of the things.
Exactly. And so you can listen to podcasts. These are just ordinary women like you and me doing extraordinary things. And no, it is not the quality of Zim excellence. This is more like me running to my computer saying, I have 2 hours, let's record this session. So yes, but you can still enjoy some episodes.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Dr. Praise. All the best with your flight. Continue to stay safe in this pandemic. And again, thank you for sharing your time with us and being so honest about what your journey has been thus far.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much for coming to the party. Majita tatenda siabonga. Nah, for real. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Zim Excellence. If you found value from this episode, please share it with a friend and go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I'll make sure to give you a shout out on future episodes. Feel free to tag us on Instagram at Zim Excellence Podcast. And if you identify as Zimbabwean, I want to hear your story. So go ahead and email zimexcellencepodcast@gmail.com. Till then, have the best week and stay Zim Excellent.